the records on my demo. Did y'all boys not get the memo? I do not stay at the intercontinental.
Welcome everybody to Off the Cuff. I'm Adam Banks. Thank you for listening to the show. March Madness is marching on. We are now into the Sweet 16 of the NCAA 2015 Men's Basketball Tournament. Chad Rainwater is in the studio with me. Chad, how are you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's always fun to have you, man, and it's always good to meet under these circumstances because we're talking college basketball. So it's definitely been an exciting weekend. Was you like me and watched all the basketball games?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Can't miss any of them.
Yeah, I know, and I like the fact that the March Madness games are not only just on CBS now. They're on TBS, they're on TNT, they're on True TV.
Yeah, we actually talked about that the other day, about how back in the day when it was only on one channel on CBS and how different it is now, and how, I mean, can you imagine if it was still on that one channel?
It was on one channel, and like they would always show the score at the top corners of the screen, and when you'd see
they keep flashing back between the games.
Yeah, you would see like a score that was really close, and you'd be like, "Oh, let me." You're freaking out because
now you have your computer to watch it on. You can watch it on 30 different channels on the TV. It's pretty amazing what it's like now.
It is. I have like game streaming on my computer, my iPad, my phone, the TV. It's crazy. It's a great way to keep up with all the games.
Definitely.
But what I want to do on today's episode is I want to talk a little bit about what the tournament has consisted of so far. So let's reflect on rounds 1, 2, and 3. Of course, round 1, they call it, is really the ride-in games, where they played on March 17th to the 18th. I just want to mention Ole Miss. Congratulations to Ole Miss, an SEC team. I had them actually winning that game against BYU. Ole Miss beat BYU 94-90, but Ole Miss that kind of was the end of their road when they had to face off against was it Xavier? They faced Xavier.
Yeah, they played Xavier. I kind of figured that they would beat Xavier. They came out pretty slow. They actually looked really good against BYU. Put up 94 points. I mean, you would think that their offense would do something against Xavier, but just wasn't good enough. It's pretty disappointing to see SEC teams do as bad as they did.
Yeah, it really was. The SEC, I thought just by looking at the round of 68, that we would have more teams get further than what they did as far as the SEC goes. But, it is what it is. It happened. Dayton made another little small run into the tournament. Archie Miller, man, he's very impressive as a coach. He got Dayton to the third round of the tournament. He was looking again for another Elite Eight like he did last year, but his dream got cut short as well. But that was really all the excitement that really happened in the first round. I know that I was really looking forward to Kentucky facing off against Manhattan's Steve Masiello, but that didn't happen as well either. That was kind of an upset. Hampton beat Manhattan, even though they were 2 16 seeds.
Yeah.
But moving on to actually the real first round of the tournament, the second round, there was a lot of, shall we say, upsets. Let's talk about a few of them. There was the Michigan State versus Virginia upset. Virginia, number 1 seed, to lose to Michigan State. What's so crazy about Michigan State, Chad, is that Tom Izzo, he is a coach that has such success in the NCAA tournament. What do you think makes him so successful in the tournament when it comes tournament time?
He just gets his team ready. He just gets them prepared. We talked about in the last podcast that they could lose out in the regular season and then go into the conference tournament and win it, and then just ball out in the NCAA tournament. I don't know what it is. He's just such a good coach with X's and O's. He just gets his team prepared.
Yeah, I agree.
That's all it comes down to.
I agree with you. I think he prepares his team throughout the year. Every game, every loss, every win, every play, he's always just trying to make his team better. So I do think the regular season matters. I do. I think the regular season is so important. But Tom Izzo, it's not like he doesn't sweat the regular season. He does well enough to get in the tournament, and then when he gets in the tournament, he's got his team prepared for whatever they have to be prepared for that tournament in such a good way. So he does excellent in the tournament, and he's on the track of doing excellent again in this tournament. He's already beat a number 1 seed. Just looking at Tom Izzo's history here, in the past, in 2009 and 2010, his record was 28-9. Won 28 games, lost 9, and he went to the Final Four. And that was back in 2010. And then in 2003, his record was 22-13, and then went to the NCAA Elite Eight.
It's ridiculous, but like you said, regular season doesn't matter that much. I think Cal's brought this up a couple of times, how the regular season doesn't matter. I mean, as long as you can get your team into the NCAA tournament, that's all that really matters, and just get them ready for that.
Right, because even though I think the regular season matters, I think it's important, and we should, I wish that, I feel like that if you go undefeated in your season, no matter what conference you're with, you automatically should be in the tournament. And I just don't want I don't want the regular season to just be something that doesn't matter to the selection committee. I think that there should be more emphasis on how teams do in the regular season. But since being at Michigan State, Izzo has been to 6 Final Fours, 18 consecutive tournaments, going 44-16 overall. And this season, 2015, his record in the regular season was 25-11. So again, not a very impressive regular season record, but
has him in the Sweet 16.
He's in the Sweet 16, and he could go further because he faces
Oklahoma.
Who do you have in?
I'm going with Michigan State. Oklahoma's one of those teams that I brought up in the other podcast that we had that I don't like them. They had 10 losses in the year, and like we said, Izzo's going to have them ready. He's going to bring all they have, and I think that Michigan State will go to this Elite Eight once again.
Yeah, I mean, it very well could happen. And the thing about Izzo, you don't bet against Izzo when it comes tournament time. It doesn't matter if he's lost 12, 13 games. You can't bet against him when it comes tournament time.
Yeah, and then just like last year, how many losses did we have coming in as an 8 seed? Look what Cal did. Cal took us to the championship game. The regular season does not matter as long as you get them in the tournament. That's all I got to say.
Wow. So here I was trying to say that I wish they would put more emphasis on the regular season, and you are totally refuting what I'm saying.
You have to have a good enough record to get into the tournament, to get into the NCAA tournament. But I don't think that.
I do see what you're saying, because here's the thing: people aren't going to remember the regular season. What do they remember at the end of the year?
Tournament.
They remember who the champion was of that year.
Yeah.
I can name a year, and you could probably tell me who the champion was of that year.
Depends.
But
I can't say what the record was in the regular season.
Right, and that's kind of your point, right?
Right.
Okay, that point taken. I understand that. So they beat Virginia. Speaking of Virginia, Tony Bennett, the coach of Virginia,
ridiculous.
He won Coach of the Year. He beat out John Calipari, and I'm a little upset about that, because my question to that is, what else does Coach Cal have to do to win Coach of the Year? I mean, he's 36-0. He's had the best record in school history of any program in the history of college basketball to start a school 36-0. He's on track of being hanging the 9th banner at Kentucky, and he not only went undefeated the whole regular season on the way of winning the championship, but he was the number 1 overall seed. What all does he have to do? What else? So, what's the reasoning for Tony Bennett to win the Coach of the Year?
All I got to say is, haters going to hate. It's because he's at UK. That's all it is. No one likes Cal. I mean, he doesn't get enough credit for what he does, and that's all it is. It's just because he's Cal. If it would have been any other coach that would have gone 36-0, they would have probably won. They probably would have won the Coach of the Year. But that's what it has to do with.
And the committee that actually picks Coach of the Year, it's the USBWA, which stands for the United States Basketball Writers Association. Who is on that committee, Chad? You told me before we came on the air of just 2 names that were on that committee. Could you name who those?
I can name one. I can't name the girl who was on there, but it was Pat Forty. That was the guy. It was he was on the board of that or something.
And he's
director of it.
And he's a Calipari hater.
Exactly. Yeah. So he has to do with it, and I can't remember the other girl who it was. It was a lady though. I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
Yeah, but congrats. To Tony Bennett, I guess.
His second Coach of the Year award. He did it at Washington State. Was that what it was in 2007?
Yeah.
He was the second coach to ever win at two different teams.
And the other coach to do that was?
Roy Williams.
And he did it at North Carolina and?
Kansas.
Good job. Yes. Georgia State and Baylor was another upset. I had Georgia State, and I was very happy that Georgia State won because how awesome is their coach, Ron Hunter?
Well, not only is the coach, I think I don't even know what I was going to say, but I think that what made this story so great is that he tore his Achilles in the conference tournament game, the championship game, and then when his son RJ hit that three at the end of the game, he fell off his little scooter and he couldn't get back up, and he broke his cast. That was so. I mean, that was the story of the tournament at that point in time.
And it's going to be shown for years and years and years to come. That buzzer beater.
The shot, or you think it's going to show him also falling off his scooter?
It's going to be.
I think that's so funny.
It's going to be a mixture of everything. It was his son that made the shot. He was celebrating and tore his
Achilles tendon.
I can't even say the words. I'm not even going to attempt it. And he fell off his scooter and broke his cast. And he just looks like just a joyful, jolly guy.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I didn't even know anything about Ron Hunter coming in or his son. Never even heard of his son until that shot, and then it'll be known for that shot will be remembered for a long time. I mean, they didn't get very far, but that was a pretty big upset.
It really was, and I hated to see them to lose. They lost to Xavier, and I hate to, I wanted to see that story continue because I wanted to see Ron Hunter on the sidelines a little bit more.
Oh, definitely.
But another upset in the tournament, besides Michigan State, Virginia.
Can I guess it?
And go ahead.
The one that screwed up like 60% of everybody's brackets. UAB over Iowa State.
Yes.
Yeah, I was pretty embarrassed about it. I put them in my Final Four in a couple brackets,
they
let me down big time.
Yeah, they were considered to be, Iowa State was considered to be one of the best teams in this tournament, one of the best teams in the country.
Right.
And they lost. So, I don't know. That was just a team that a lot of people had in their Final Four. Some people even had them winning it all.
Yeah, actually, one of my brackets had them going to the championship game. I never liked it. I never liked my decision of making them in the championship, but I mean, they were a good team. I mean, they looked pretty good in their conference tournament, and I thought they were going to come in strong in the NCAA tournament, but UAB.
Yeah, absolutely. And another game that I loved watching was the Kansas versus Wichita State. I just think that game was awesome because what I found very interesting about that game was Wichita and Kansas had never played before. Did you know that?
Well, I knew that Kansas didn't want to play each other. They didn't want to play Wichita State.
Do you know the reasoning behind that?
No, I'm not sure. If I had to guess, it would be that they wanted Kansas to come to their home court.
Yeah, Greg Marshall, he's just outstanding. Like he is just, like I said in our last show, that he just has a very fast-paced coaching style. His team always plays with high tempo.
He's up and down the court.
He's just up and down the court. And Greg Marshall was Billy Donovan's assistant at Marshall, so he kind of has that Billy Donovan offense. So, congrats to Greg Marshall with that win over Kansas. I think that it will make a great game as far as media goes if they make it to the Elite Eight and play UK.
Definitely.
Because you know why. The whole Wichita State versus Kentucky last year.
We took down their undefeated season last year, and they'd have a chance to take down ours. I think that'd be a great matchup. I just don't know if they can get past Notre Dame or not.
That's going to be where the problem lies. That's a big if
they can win, but there's always hope.
Yeah, because Wichita State last year, remember, they were the pursuit of perfection. They were 35-0, 35-0 before Kentucky beat them. So it would make a great game as far as the media goes. I think that Wichita State is a team that I don't want to play. I would rather play Notre Dame over Wichita State, just to be honest with you, as a Kentucky fan. That's who I would want to see. Another big upset in the tournament was NC State versus Villanova. Villanova was the first number 1 seed to go out, just like I predicted. And did you predict Villanova to go out?
I don't think I had them losing to NC State. Actually, I had like 5 brackets. And one of my brackets that had NC State beating Villanova. I kind of thought that Villanova would be the first number 1 seed to go down. But you were pretty big on your NC State boys. What did you have them going to the Final Four in one bracket? Well, or was that your only bracket?
Well, I did. Here's my thing about brackets in March Madness. I think that if you do more than one bracket in during March Madness, I think that just absolutely kills the magic of March Madness. I think if you do more than one bracket, if you have more than one Final Four, you just kill the whole magic of cheering for the teams in the tournament. So, yes, I did have NC State actually in the first bracket that I filled out. I called it my gut bracket. I had NC State in the championship game. And then when I actually sit down and I did a little bit more research, and what I consider to be my real bracket, I only have NC State in the Sweet 16 facing Louisville, and I actually have Louisville in that bracket going to the Elite Eight. So, that was a great game. NC State was one of those teams that I knew was going to pull an upset, and I knew it was going to be against Villanova.
Good call on that one.
Absolutely. Well, via the telephone, I have Ron Mullins coming at us live from Hyman, Kentucky. Ron, how's it going, buddy?
Hi, going good. How's it?
Man, it's going good. I was just I know you're just now joining us, but I was kind of talking about the upsets that we just had here over the weekend with rounds 2 and 3 of the tournament. What do you feel like was kind of your biggest surprise in this tournament? What team are you shocked to see in the Sweet 16 besides UCLA, of course? Louisville.
I'm surprised to see Louisville there.
Okay. Okay, that's very understanding. What do you think about the next opponent, NC State and Louisville in the Sweet 16?
Well, NC State beat Louisville, at the Yum Center this year. And that was with Chris Jones. Jones was one of the best defenders in the country. He couldn't stop Cat Barber or Trevor Lacey. It's going to be a task for Quentin Snyder as a freshman who really don't have Bricktino's defense down yet to do, but I think Louisville can beat them, actually. I think the winner of NC State and Louisville goes to the Final Four.
I 100% agree with you on that because I think that the East bracket, just by watching this tournament, these teams in this bracket are playing with such fire and with such heart that I think that whoever wins that game, especially Louisville and NC State, it's just going to kind of tell the tale of who wants it more.
Going up against Izzo, though, in the Final Four?
Yeah.
Or in the Elite Eight?
Yeah.
It's going to be tough?
Yeah, Izzo is he's hard to beat come tournament time. Kentucky versus West Virginia. Kentucky, Chad, I don't know about you, and Ron, I don't know about you, but Kentucky, my mind's not changed. I still have them winning the national championship. Their next opponent is West Virginia University, and some people say that WVU could be that team to take Kentucky down. What's something that's very interesting about this game? Coach Huggins is the coach at West Virginia, Bob Huggins, and his record against Coach Calipari is 8-2. Very interesting statistic. Ryan, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think sometimes you got to throw things out the window. All of that came from when Huggins had a really good Cincinnati team, and Calipari just took over Memphis, and they played in the Conference USA. I know one year in Conference USA, Cincinnati beat them twice, and they played in the first round of the tournament. That was 3 wins right there over a really good Cincinnati team against a really bad Memphis team. And a lot of those wins have come like that. I'll be honest, I hate West Virginia. I hope Kentucky throttles them.
I agree with you on that one, Ryan.
I think they will, but I just hope they do.
Well, let's talk about our... I'm sorry.
Wichita State, I think that'll be interesting. Kentucky ended Wichita's undefeated season. Now Wichita could match up with Kentucky. Wichita, they've been wanting to play Kansas forever. They've not played Kansas since 1993. Them and Kansas, met in the NCAA tournament back in the 80s. Wichita won then, too. But, 93, that's a long time for them to go without playing. Wichita's been wanting to play. And, they played them and they won. And I think they got a chip on their shoulder. I don't think they can beat Kentucky. I don't think they'll be close to Kentucky. But I think that would be an interesting storyline leading up to it.
Yeah, it'd be great for the media. Just a little side notes there for that matchup. West Virginia beat Kentucky in 2010 in the Elite Eight, and then this is just here recently. And then Kentucky beat West Virginia in 2011 to get to the Sweet 16, and now they meet again as Kentucky is at Calipari in 2015 this year as they face in the Sweet 16. So let's talk about our Sweet 16 teams. They've been set I've asked you, Ron, who you thought was your most surprising team in the tournament in the Sweet 16. You said Louisville. Chad, who's yours?
UCLA. You said besides UCLA.
Besides UCLA, yes. And Chad, besides UCLA, who is the most shocking team in the Sweet 16?
Besides UCLA, let's see. Let me look over this real fast.
I want to say Xavier.
You're going to say Xavier?
Yeah, I really thought that Ole Miss was going to make a run to the Sweet 16. And I'll tell you why I liked Ole Miss. A lot of people would say I'm crazy for that. Ole Miss, Andy Kennedy is a coach, and he has to have family from Knott County, Kentucky, because he is somebody who has just the personality of somebody who's just from the country. If you hear him in interviews, he's just one of those raw, just good old country boy fighter kind of coach, and he don't care how he wins. He just wants to win. And he'll keep his players in there for the entire time that's on the clock. He don't take them out to rest. He plays them, and he gets a lot of fire out of his players. That little dude that throws up the ugliest shots in the world, but they go in. The little what's his name? I'm having a blank with his name.
Stephon Moody.
Stephon Moody.
How he tore it up against BYU. And that's why I thought that they would beat Xavier. I thought Moody would have a good game, come firing out all cylinders, but it didn't happen.
Right. So I mean, and then when Ole Miss went out, I thought Georgia State, after that little run they was on, that they could beat Xavier. But we mentioned Georgia State before. It was sad to see them leave.
And they got lucky because they're a terrible scoring team. I mean, they scored 13 points in 2 minutes, and I watched them play the game. I watched them play more than one game with them not being able to make 20 and a half. And as far as Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss is terrible. Probably the worst team in the tournament besides UCLA. Andy Kennedy, I don't know why he's got a job. Honestly, he's not done a very good job in the years he's been there. The SEC has started making some coaching changes. It was the worst out of the Power 5 conferences again this year. But Ben Howell and Bruce Pearl, along with John, take Kentucky out of what I'm saying. Of course, they're awesome. They're elite. John Calipari's elite as a coaching, but that's been the major problem with the SEC. And I think Kennedy's one of those issues. But as far as Xavier, I think it's going to be interesting when you look at Xavier playing Sean Miller. Chris Mack coached under Sean Miller at Xavier before Miller left Xavier for Arizona. So that's an interesting matchup.
Ron, what's the most interesting game in the Sweet 16? I think, in my opinion, if you want to hear mine, it's Louisville versus NC State, because like you said, the winner of that game is going to be a Final Four team.
I think the most interesting game is probably North Carolina and Wisconsin.
I agree. I think that's one of the games I'm looking forward to is UNC and Wisconsin. I think UNC matches up with Wisconsin. Ron, do you know if Kennedy Meeks got hurt when they played Arkansas? Have they said anything about his injury?
Well, they've not addressed it yet. Which Roy Williams said they was going to evaluate him, that they plan to practice him. And I would say he'll be ready to go, but they've not really said anything specific.
Okay.
Not as last I checked today, anyway.
Okay, I wasn't for sure on that. I think North Carolina has a really good chance to knock off Wisconsin. I'd rather play. I'd rather Wisconsin get knocked out because that's one of the teams that has a chance to beat us in the tournament. But I'd like to see. I'm ready to see that game.
I think Notre Dame is the best shot to stay close to Kentucky. I don't think.
They don't. They can put up some points, but they don't really play defense that much. Yeah, Notre Dame was one of the teams I was kind of worried about, but I'm more worried about Wisconsin or Arizona than Notre Dame.
Yeah, you got to get Notre Dame on one of their own nets. If they hit one of their own nets, they're dangerous. But if they're not, they're subpar.
Well, I don't know if you have a bracket in front of you, Ryan, but I kind of want to talk about Elite Eight predictions going forward here. I've got Duke and Gonzaga. I've got Wisconsin and Arizona. I got Kentucky and Wichita. And then I've got Oklahoma versus the winner of Louisville and NC State. And I just cannot decide on that game. That game is just, if I could flip a coin, if I had a coin, does anybody have a coin?
I have a coin.
I'm going to get a coin right now. I have a coin. Heads, Louisville, tails, NC State. And
You lost the coin.
it looks like that
Louisville.
Louisville is going to the final, or I'm sorry, to the Elite Eight. So, Chad, who's your Elite Eight predictions?
In the Midwest, I have Kentucky and Wichita State. Then in the West, I got Wisconsin and Arizona. I did say North Carolina, didn't I?
Yes.
I'd like to see North Carolina win. Okay, I'm gonna go with North Carolina
Over
and
Wisconsin.
Arizona. North Carolina over Wisconsin, and I hate North Carolina, but I like to see them beat Wisconsin. And then I got North Carolina and Arizona. Then I'm going with Louisville and Michigan State out of the East. And in the South, I got Duke and Gonzaga. I'm really curious. I'm really looking forward to that Gonzaga and Duke game. I think Gonzaga has a chance to beat Duke. I mean, they're both teams choke in the tournament, so it's going to be interesting to see who can come out on top on that one.
Ron, do you have a bracket in front of you where you can make an Elite Eight predictions, or is that kind of putting you on the spot too much?
No, I got a bracket.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, I'm going to go with West Virginia. Actually, I'm lying. I'm going to go with Kentucky.
Well, we both sat there a little. We both sat there. We made eye contact, Chad and I. And we were just like, is Ron doing a look at me bracket? But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Kentucky, Notre Dame, playing to come out of the Midwest. And then I like North Carolina. I like Roy Williams. I think he's a good coach. I don't know about Bo Ryan. He's flamed out a lot. So I'm going to go with North Carolina over Wisconsin. And I'm probably wrong here, but for some reason I'm going to think that Chris Mack gets his guys ready. Xavier knocks off Arizona.
Ooh.
So down goes Wisconsin and Arizona.
Yeah, that works good for Kentucky's favor.
Yeah.
Like I said, I may be wrong, but I think this is going to be a huge game for Chris Mack. I think he wants it more than Sean Miller. I think he'll have Xavier fired up by letting him know, hey, this guy left us. He didn't want to be here with us. So, we're Louisville on NC State. NC State beat Louisville. While Louisville had a better defensive player, but Rick Pitino's 10-1 in the Sweet 16. A week to prepare. I'm going to give the edge to Pitino over Mark Godfrey. I think it's a bad coach.
Well,
And then Izzo. I'm putting Izzo out there, and then I'm going to go with Duke and Gonzaga. Very interesting point there, how they both flame out in the tournament. Duke and Gonzaga. I guess just which one flames out in that game.
Well, I've always said I always look at who's coaching a team, and I think that's just so important when choosing a winner of a basketball team is who their coach is. It's kind of like when I go to Keeneland and watch horse racing.
You see who the jockey is.
I look who the jockey is.
Yep, that's a way I go to.
Yeah, I look at who the jockey is. I look at their record, and I look how what kind of training they put the horse through. That's what I look for in a basketball team. I look who their coach is, and if I had to choose Louisville's coach or NC State's coach, I'm going with Pitino. I'm going with Louisville. So,
This makes 4 straight tournaments. Louisville's faced their rematch from a regular season game, and every game except 2013 against Duke has ended basically the same way within 4 points of each other. It's been the exact same game. So I thought that was.
Isn't it a loss?
I don't know. It's very interesting though. It's but the Sweet 16 is set. The Sweet 16 will be March 26th and the 27th.
Can we bring up? Isn't Pitino 16-1 in the Sweet 16?
10-1.
10-1.
10-1.
I thought I saw 16-1.
Yeah, he lost his first Sweet 16 last year to Kentucky. Yeah, because they made a big deal out of that because Pitino had never lost in the Sweet 16.
Right.
And he was also a 4 seed against an 8 seed. This is the second straight year that's happened to him. So, just a few little things there. And you mentioned coaching. I just want to throw back one sec there. You look at LSU. LSU should be a lot better team. I say, they got talent. I just think their coach sucks. I mean, as far as getting coach, next year he may show the thing more, but I completely agree with you. It comes down to coaching. And, Godfrey is not a good coach at Pitino, but I think he's got better players. So let's see which one worked out.
Well, speaking of coaches, Ryan, both of us, we like to talk about coaching situations, who's getting hired, who's getting fired, who's on the hot seat or whatnot. Mississippi State just hired a new coach, Ben Holland. What do you think about that hire?
I think it's always hard. Like I said, the SEC, they need to make a comeback. They're trying to, and it's just the coaching has been the problem. And UCLA, but people forget his last year, he had a decent team, and he had good recruits coming, and he seemed to be on the upswing, but they was just done with him. That situation had run its course, which happens sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it's a solid hire. I think he'll do a good job there. I think he can at least put him on the level Rick Stansbury had him, and I think Mississippi State will be very pleased if they stay around that level.
I have to agree with you. I think it's a great hire. The only thing that I feel like is going to really get in the way of Coach Holland is moving from Los Angeles, California, to Mississippi. Could you imagine the culture shock going from palm trees to pine trees?
Well, you got to think he was in Pittsburgh first too. That's about an armpit of America.
Pittsburgh, if I had. Well, we might have listeners in Pittsburgh, so I'm not going to say anything about Pittsburgh. But Mississippi State, yes, I think they scored. They struck gold with that hire. The former coach of UCLA, in his 19 years of a head coach, he's been to 3 Final Fours, and he's also been to a championship game, but ended up losing that game. Alabama is still a coaching job that's open. 3 of the frontliners that I've heard that could be in line to take that job is Steve Prohm of Murray State, which I think is probably the guy who's going to get offered the job. He is an Alabama alum. He's done outstanding with Murray State. He's had them in the top 25 in the nation. He had a ridiculous record at Murray State, a ridiculous winning record. Let's see here. I've got the stat pulled up here. It's like a 103-28 record at Murray State. Won 103 games and lost 28. That's unreal. And he's been to the tournament a couple times. So, Steve Prohm, he's probably going to be the first guy, in my opinion, to take over the job at Alabama. Another guy that's rumored for it is Greg Marshall. I highly doubt it. Paul Feinbaum said on his radio program the other day, he was talking to Andy Katz. Andy Katz believes that Greg Marshall is the first choice, but Paul Feinbaum says he's not convinced because he thinks that Greg Marshall's waiting out for a top 10 job. And then another guy I think
Greg Marshall's leaving this year, but I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, and another guy that's been rumored for the job is Shaka Smart. Now, I don't think Shaka is as hot as he was when everybody was wanting Shaka. Every time a job comes open, this name is brought up. And I think it'll be difficult for Alabama to get somebody like Shaka. But Alabama has the funds to make a decent proposal for Shaka Smart to leave VCU. But
I think if Shaka Smart was going to leave VCU for a job like in Alabama, I think he would have went to Minnesota. His name is right on the edge of my tongue. I can't think of it. His old athletic director at VCU, who he's very good friends with, was at Minnesota to make the hire. I just think, I'm not saying he stayed at VCU forever. I don't see Alabama. I hadn't heard Greg Marshall mentioned for that. I've heard Mike White's name a lot on it. But I've also heard Mark Gottfried. I see no way that happened. He was there once before. He didn't win. Don't see why they'd want him back. I don't see why he would go back. But for the fact that he's an alum, I think it's Steve Prohm. I agree with you. I think Greg Marshall ends up in Texas this offseason.
What's unfortunate about Alabama is the program is just not viewed as a desirable destination for most hot coaching prospects right now. It's in the SEC. SEC is a football conference. Alabama's a football school. They have the greatest football program in the nation. You're going to be overshadowed by Nick Saban and the Alabama football program. So whoever wants that job, that makes it hard for Alabama to go after, a hotshot coach. What do you think, Chad?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said there. I was actually just looking up some stats.
That's fine.
You caught me off guard there, but I agree with everything that you said. It's going to be hard to go out and get a good coach since they are a football school and everything. So,
yeah. So, sorry to catch you off guard there.
Yeah, I was looking up stats about.
I don't know what he's looking at, folks. It might not be stats. I don't know. He's good as he's smiling over there. So who knows? So
you do have Florida, who had a top-notch coach, at one time, with Urban Meyer and Billy Donovan. You got Louisville's got Bobby Petrino and Rick Pitino, and you got Auburn, who's got Bruce Pearl and Gus Malzahn. And could possibly have Texas with Charlie Strong and Greg Marshall. So
Well,
they can work together, but I agree. I don't think Alabama gets the top name. I think Steve Prohn's a very good coach, and I think he'll be an excellent hire. Just like Bryce Drew at DePaul, I think will be an excellent hire to do it. I think Steve Masiello, St. John's is the best fit I've ever seen in college basketball, but for some reason it has not happened yet.
I know you have expressed your desire to get Steve Masiello at St. John's. Like, you really want that to happen.
I think that's a national championship combination, at least a national championship caliber. You know, it's so hard to win a national championship. I won't say that. But I think that's a situation that could produce a national championship caliber team.
It is hard to win a national championship, and you can't look at a coach and say, "Oh, he's not a good coach." If the coach has never won a national championship, it's just unfair. Look, some of the greatest coaches in this game has only won one. I mean, look, Coach Cal, he's won one. Tom Izzo, he's won one. Then there has been, the elite coaches. I think in order to be considered top 5 coaches of all time, you have to have at least one under your belt. But it's unnecessary to say they're not a good coach if they don't have any national titles, because it's so hard to win. I think if you're winning, if you're competing every year, and you're making a run in the tournament, then you have a good regular season, because I think the regular season is important, then that's what considers you being a good coach.
I think what you got to do every year is, Jared Stillman of ESPN 680 said this, and I've never really thought about it, but every team's goal every year should be to get to the Sweet 16. Because once you get to the Sweet 16, you don't know what's happening. You don't know who's in front of you. You don't know what matchups. Once you get to the Sweet 16, you're 2 games away from the Final Four. Once you get to the Final Four, you're 2 games away from a national championship.
Yep.
And once you get to the Sweet 16, there's 16 teams. You got a great shot. I mean, you don't know what's happening once you get there. That's the key. You got to get there.
That's right. I think that's a good safe haven for a lot of people. Like, just like the old Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game. When you made it to $32,000, you knew that you were, you definitely were in a safe haven. It's like in basketball. If you make it to the Sweet 16, you've kind of hit a safe haven in coaching. Like, no, you're not under any pressure. If you make it to the Sweet 16, I feel like that saved a lot of people from losing their job if they make it to a Sweet 16. But
there's a lot of people who never complain on Sweet 16. You look at Wayne Blackshear. This is his 4th straight. Richard Pitino commented his kids would love to be there. Kentucky. If it's Kentucky and Louisville, it's almost a given they're going to be there anymore. And there's so many programs who just never even think about getting there. And it's amazing when you really think about it, because that's why a lot of teams would strive and just, love Xavier. They've been starting to be there a little bit, but, this is huge to them to be in the Sweet 16. Utah, it's huge to them to be in the Sweet 16. So I think Kentucky and Louisville fans, and I would say Duke and Carolina, but, Kentucky and Louisville's got 27 combined wins in the past 4 years in the tournament. Duke and Carolina's got 7. A lot of fan bases have just taken it for granted, but Sweet 16 is really a big deal.
It really is. I mean, I think the Sweet 16 is somewhat underrated as far as a big landmark in the tournament. But I feel like that Sweet 16 is where it starts to really matter. When you can get past the first 3 rounds of the tournament and you make it to the Sweet 16, I feel like that you've made it. I think that you can consider your season a success if you make it to the Sweet 16. Would you agree with that, Chad?
Not unless you're at Kentucky.
Well, some schools have higher standards, and right. I mean, and it's as to be expected.
According to what your year's been like in the regular season. You said the regular season. Last year, Louisville's season was not a success, losing on Sweet 16. That was another championship or nothing. At least Final Four. This year, Louisville's season, I think, will be considered a success for all the turnover and all the turmoil they've dealt with. Louisville don't hang Sweet 16 banners. They don't wear the shirts, and Kentucky don't either. But I got an Oklahoma shirt. I bought it at Goodwill, and them celebrating being in the round of 64. I think it matters. It just matters where you're at and what your season's been, because Louisville could have. What if they hadn't went through the turmoil and been a 2 seed? They could be a 2 seed in Kentucky's region. No shot of the Final Four. But they're a 4 seed just get to the Sweet 16. You don't know what happened. They may lose to NC State. But as a Louisville fan, I consider this season a success. Every year, Sweet 16, no, we got higher standards. Every now and then, you're not at your top every year. And to still get to Sweet 16 not at your top, as Kentucky has done in the past, is a good accomplishment.
I agree. And Ron, I don't know if you were connected to us at the time when I was having this conversation with Chad about brackets. I asked him how many brackets he filled out in March Madness. I said I filled out one. And Chad, how many did you fill out?
5 plus our gut brackets of 6.
Okay, so Chad filled out multiple brackets. I made the comment. I said if you fill out more than one, if you do more than one bracket in during March Madness, it takes away from the whole thrill and magic of watching these games and cheering for people. What do you think about that comment I made?
I completely disagree.
And why?
Well, one thing, I didn't have Georgia State. I done 2 brackets. I didn't have Georgia State winning on either. I hit my feet when R.J. Hunter hit that shot. Just as a basketball fan, I said, I was off work last week. I got to sit home and watch it. And, it was just awesome to watch. And I put my bracket in for fun, just to have a little something riding on it. Like, I had Northern Iowa in the Sweet 16. You think I cared about my bracket last night? I mean, my bracket's a very small part of it. It's something fun to look at. I had UAB. Awesome. I didn't have Georgia State. I had Wofford over Arkansas. I had Buffalo over West Virginia. I lost a few there, but it's just, bracket's a very small part to me. It's a little bit of fun of it. But to me, it's the magic of the basketball games as a basketball fan, watching those games. If I get everything right, great. If I don't, that's fine too.
Right. Yeah. Well, Ruth Graham, wife of Billy Graham, an evangelist, she once
I do one bracket the way I think it'll go, and I do one bracket kind of crazy. So my second bracket is just gone. My bracket was Virginia beating Arizona for the national championship out the window.
Well, Ruth Graham, the wife of Pastor Billy Graham, she once said, if 2 people have the same opinion, one of those people don't matter. So we all have different opinions, and so we all matter.
Depends on how much money you want to win tin.
True.
If they're money brackets,
but bracket tournaments are fun when you can just fill out one bracket. Fill out one bracket, go all in on the teams, invest in the teams that you pick. That way, if
you're going for the money, you need more than one bracket.
Right, like for instance, let me give you an example. Georgia State, they won. I jumped out of my skin when they hit that buzzer beater and to beat Baylor. I jumped out of my skin, and I was so happy. Not because Georgia State beat Baylor. I could care less who won that game. I was just happy because I had Georgia State in my bracket beating Baylor. But, if I would have had multiple brackets and I would have put Baylor beating Georgia State, it wouldn't have mattered to me as much. But I went all in, and I was invested into this bracket. I just feel like that it's just March Madness is fun when you can have one bracket. You invest all of your energy into these teams, and then, if you have a terrible bracket, you just have a terrible bracket. It's March. We only get to do this one time a year.
I jumped out of my skin, and I didn't have Georgia State winning. I was a basketball fan sitting there watching the game. I'm down to one bracket now. I messed up one bracket. But I don't think multiple brackets take away any bit of the enjoyment. Actually, I think multiple brackets could enhance the enjoyment, if anything. No.
I don't understand your logic behind that.
I don't understand yours, for one.
Okay. Well, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening to the show. Ron, it was awesome having you joining us again. The Sweet 16 will be March 26th, March 27th, and the Elite 8 will be March 28th and March 29th. And we'll be back with a Final Four show to talk about, to preview the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and to talk about the Final Four. So, Ron, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Look forward to the next.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Chad, thanks for sitting in and doing the show. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me on, man.
All right. We'll see you guys in the next episode. See you later.
And anything I got is not a rental. I own that motherfucker. Figured out this shit is simple. My stock been going up like a crescendo.